Severance episode 3 was an extremely important episode this season. I'm a couple days late on this, but I was able to see everybody else's theories, so I want to point out some things that I haven't seen yet. This episode inspired a lot of theories. It had so many details, and it also raised a lot of questions, so let's get into this. I haven't seen anybody ask this question. See, like with this cassette right here, and the car, and just everything in this universe, why is it that all the technology is so old? Like in this universe, they can sever people, but they have old TVs, they got old cars, they got old computers. What's going on with that? Like, is it the rest of the world that's also like that? Or is it just in this Kier area? For some reason, they just have old technology. I wasn't sure. I didn't know how to check this except by going back and watching all the episodes. Is this the first clock that we have in the show that's digital? All I know is it feels like every clock we see in the show is analog besides this watch right here. I have a question for y'all. Who do you think this person at the desk is calling to tell people that, you know, the severed workers are coming in? Is it Milchick? Is it somebody else? Why does he even have to check in here and then also go to the security guard? In the intro, I noticed something this week. At the beginning, it starts off him in bed. Everything's normal, right? But then at the end, after he goes through the whole journey, it's snowing. And then baby Kier comes in. What is up with the snow? We have a lot of references to snow and ice so far this season. This episode opened up with Cobel on the icy road. In the first episode of Severance, we also get this.
Hey!
Sorry.
Maybe keep your eyes on the icy road.
And then in the intro, we get that icy area where he, goes up out through the balloon and all that, where the car crashes in the background. So maybe his wife died on the icy road or something. But why did Helly say that? Watch the icy road. Was that like some foreshadowing, like seasons before we're about to get something with that? I'm assuming that Irving made this drawing of Gemma. I feel like we're going to see Irving's drawing and painting have like a gigantic effect in this season somehow, because in season 1, remember, the ink was like dropping down into his subconscious in the severed floor. I think there's something with drawing that allows messages to get through from the outie world to the innie world. Also, this first line of dialogue from Mark here, I feel like definitely has two meanings.
Okay, me and Helly will find the goat man and other possible goat people.
So in the episode, we do find that they find the goat people they're talking about, but I feel like the idea of the goats turning into people, find the goat man and other goat people, I think there's actually something to that, like the goats somehow being in this process of cloning or something with the chip or something, where they're goat people.
You haven't been back there, have you?
No.
We got you.
Thank you, Helly.
Once again, there is something to that dialogue. I feel like if that's actually Helena and not Helly, I feel like she's insinuating something about having Irving. I feel like that was definitely a piece of dialogue that there was more to it than meets the eye. Especially because Irving was acting so weird, like he either knew that wasn't Helly or he knew exactly what she was insinuating. Something else is there. Now, this scene right here, people think that there's just this awkward chemistry going on and Mark is kind of shy, but hear me out. Look at this camera angle real quick. This camera angle looks like someone's watching them from around the corner, right? I feel like Mark felt like someone was watching him, which is why he started feeling weird. And that kind of goes back to the first episode with that person that was watching Mark and we don't know who it was. I feel like they were behind that corner watching him again. These balloons, I don't understand what's going on with all the balloon references in this season. I don't get it. There's something to it, because even right after this, when he walks into that office with Natalie says something about his balloons needing coffee. Everybody's talking about this scene right here and the great acting and saying things with the eyes, not saying things through dialogue. Everybody's trying to kind of determine what's going on right here, right? Here's my opinion. So when we see that his image is placed on Kier, in Kier's life, and this scene is happening between two black people, right? A lot of people were saying it reminds them of this scene right here from Get Out. Like there's a cry for help, but she couldn't ask for it. But here's the thing, even after she ends the call with the board, it's not like she then opens up with him, which makes me think that maybe the board's not actually talking to her through the microphone, and that's like a misdirect, in that it's actually like in her head, like she can't get out of being surveilled by the board. Because even Helly calls Natalie to get in touch with the board at the end of the episode. And like, why would Helly have to ask Natalie to get in touch with the board? You'd think Egan would be able to do that whenever they want to. So why is Natalie like the one in charge of it? But as far as what's happening between them here in this scene, I do think race has a huge deal to play here, with the idea of taking a black person and putting them in this white experience and lifestyle. I think there's going to be a lot more to that. And there was like a little detail that made me really think that, and it's this. Later on, when he's putting them away, he puts a white sheet over his face before he covers it and puts it away, showing that his life is like being whitewashed. It's being taken over. But a question I have about them putting other people's faces over the Kier cycle, as Natalie called it, which is interesting because she didn't say Kier's life. She said cycle, which I think plays into the revolving and then also the idea of reincarnating him and all that. But what's interesting is we saw how with the paintings, they also did the same thing with the different factions in the Severed Floor. Like they had that one rebellion painting, and one was O&D, one was macro data. It's like I don't know what that's about. I'm not sure what that's about. Why do you think they're doing that? Like this copy and pasting the same paintings, but with like different things, different people. I feel like in this moment, she had a revelation and she turns around, she goes back to Lumon. And I don't think she actually was going back to Lumon just to get her job back. I think she's like a tactician and she has a multi-layered plan in effect. Y'all, listen to this first piece of dialogue that happens when Mark and Helly get in the goat room.
Oh my God.
What the hell?
Oh my God, what the hell? Two polar opposites, religious language. We know that the first episode of Severance was called Good News About Hell, and there's like a lot of references to hell, even like Helly's name. And then also in the first season, there was like a board that said hello, and like the O, she was like standing in front of the O, so it was just hell. And then there's the Cobel quote about hell being, you know, part of humans' imagination, but, you know, humans can end up creating whatever they want, something like that. And so those pieces of dialogue, oh my God, what the hell? And if Lumon's like playing God and the Severed Floor is like hell, come on, like that's an amazing piece of dialogue.
I'm sorry to pop in after all this time. I'm sure you must be very busy.
What's interesting here is Felicia doesn't correct him, because remember, Irving thinks 5 months have passed, but it's only been a couple days. So that's why he said, you know, sorry for popping up after all this time. But it's weird that Felicia's not like, what do you mean? Like, you were just here the other day, you know? So that was interesting. The way Helly acts in this entire scene with the goat people makes me feel like it's definitely Helena. Like I feel like it seems like she has some type of insider info in this whole entire exchange. I also want to know why the goat people were hiding the fact that they knew who Gemma was. I'm not gonna lie, at first I was questioning if this was even his wife or if they just brought a random person in here. But what's interesting about this scene right here to me is actually the background. So you got another like balloon lamp right there, right? And then if you look at the birds in all three of these paintings, you have one that's like up close here in detail, one that's further away, kind of blurry, and then one that's just completely like white over here, no details at all. So it's like this journey of going away. Then also this balloon kind of looks like a moon or a sun, but it's on the bottom instead of up top, which would make sense as far as representing being severed. Like he's alive in the bottom, he's not alive in the outer world.
Who's Seth?
Don't you...
Please refrain from sharing information that may be privileged or sensitive.
Now what's interesting about that to me is I'm curious why Cobel was able to live next to Mark if they don't want any type of contact on the outside for the outies, you know, for people they may know as the innies, right? And see, they're even trying to keep this classified, this Seth thing. So why is it that Cobel was able to be around Mark? So when we learn that the black elevator, O&D calls it the export hall, that's really interesting because Cobel sent Gemma there to go to the testing floor. Also, she says they send a guy now, but she doesn't say the name. She doesn't say it's Milchick. She doesn't say it's the security guy that, you know, passed away in the first season. She just says a guy, like Irving wouldn't know who the guy is. So that's interesting. So I wonder if different departments send different things through that hallway, because O&D makes things so they see it as an export hall. Cobel, who's managing everything, sends things to the testing floor. And so we know that they also make doors from earlier this season. So they must be manufacturing things. Do they send the goats, the doors? Like what else could they be making? Is it clones? Is it the chips? Like what exactly are they exporting out? And if it's exporting, does that mean that Gemma got shipped somewhere? Like, is she not even here? I thought she was at the testing. Is the testing floor somewhere else? Like, we all assumed the testing floor was downstairs, but did she get exported to said testing floor somewhere else? Is that like where Cobel went with that one house in the middle of the snow? Is that the testing floor? Now, this part I feel like does lend into the idea of reincarnating or clones or something like that.
See? Pouches.
So this is like a running joke in the show that people from macro data refinement have pouches, right? Because even O and D asked them about that. But the theory the other divisions have about them is that they like have these babies that they grow or whatever, and then it ends up eating them or something like that. And like that kind of does play into the idea of like the whole baby thing and reincarnating and replacing the people in macro data refining. Like, is it like they actually are growing some type of human or something like that ends up replacing them? So I've seen a ton of breakdowns about this show over here, the kids watching. But what I haven't seen anybody talk about is how it's propaganda and marketing for Lumon, essentially. Essentially having these kids watch this program where it seems normal to have this chip in your head and all that kind of stuff will get the children prepared, in a sense, for it to be normal when they're adults to all get chipped, because that's what Lumon wants to do, is to get everyone to have one of these chips in their head. Now, this line of dialogue right here once again plays into this reincarnation birth type thing.
Can I just say, your brother is one of the sweetest members of our severed team.
Yeah, he's a good egg.
Yeah, he's a good egg. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Helena asks if she's livestock in the very first episode of Severance, asking how she got to where she was. Egg, birth, new life. Amazing line of dialogue right there. Something I haven't seen people talk about in this scene is the fact that it seems like Natalie coached Ricken on what to say to Devin. Like, he's checking in with her on basically every sentence that he's saying, which plays into my theory that Ricken has been working with Lumon. Like, right here, Devin gets the idea that Lumon's trying to get to Ricken. I think they already did this whole entire time from season 1, like from the very beginning. I feel like he's been working with Lumon in some capacity, because even from season 1, Mark has always been cautious of Ricken, and he was cautious again in this episode right here.
Have you told Ricken what we're doing here?
Are you insane? No.
Okay.
And also the sister says, are you insane? No. So like, she doesn't trust Ricken either, like even maybe prior to Natalie being over there. Like, that's odd. That's an odd thing to say. Now, this scene with Cobel and Helly was amazing. One piece of dialogue that really stuck out to me though.
Why don't we reset? Doesn't have to be this way.
Why don't we reset? It doesn't have to be this way. That sounds very robotic. That sounds like some type of mind control, right? And Cobel acts weird. Everybody wants to know why she acts so weird. Maybe she's done this reset multiple times and it's like messed her up mentally. Also, I want to know what Cobel has on Helly to think that, Helly had to invite her back. Is it because Helly got instructed to by the board? Does she have something on Helly? Does she have something on Helly's dad? What's going on there? Also, right here, I don't think Cobel got spooked from this dude that's standing next to Helly. I think she realized it was a trap somehow and she was getting ahead of it, right? But I don't know why she would just recognize just in that moment it was a trap. However, I have noticed that the only time Cobel ever gets spooked is when the board is brought up. That's the only time I see her get scared of anything, is when the board gets brought up. My question here is, why did Mark drive over here? What is this building that he parked in front of? Why did he drive here? What is this place? What's going on here? Also, she says that now she's better at the reintegrating process. How does she get better at the reintegrating process? That means she had to practice. Is that who Irving called to say he got the message to his innie? Did someone else become reintegrated that we don't know of? Did Bert get reintegrated? Is that why he was following Irving? Did she reintegrate Helly, which is why people think that Helly down there is Helena? Or is she already reintegrated? All right, now this is my favorite part of this breakdown, because this is something that I literally noticed 5 seconds before I recorded, which has to do with, we get a lot of symbolism with 4 and like a quarter. So let's talk about that. So right here, when Mark is reintegrating, you see these 4 circles that appear, which really look kind of very similar to those 4 circles that were in Gemma's code at the end of episode 1. Those 4 rings right there, it looks very similar. Now, Ben Stiller tweeted out, "What a quarter."
What month is it?
You mean what quarter?
So when Ben Stiller tweeted out "what quarter," I'm starting to think, okay, what's going on here? And we have just 4 all over the place. We have 4 people working in macro data refinement. We have 4 tempers. He sees his life in quarters. You got the 4 circles in the wavelengths. And so now I'm just trying to think of all the different symbolism of 4. I never paid attention to that before. Now I'm going to. If y'all have anything that pops up, leave that in the comments. So yeah, this episode did something no one was expecting. No one expected Mark to get reintegrated till probably the season finale, maybe even next season. But the reason they were able to do that is because the show wasn't about Mark trying to reintegrate himself. That was never the point. His character arc is more one of healing, right? And so this is part of the process, but it'll be interesting because he still has to end up somewhat broken by the end of the season for it to be able to continue. I believe they said this show is going to be 4 seasons, so it still has to be able to continue somewhat. So I think some drama is about to happen now that he's reintegrated. It would be wild if he reintegrates and he finds out that Helly also already reintegrated. But episode 4 is about to be wild. But yeah, y'all, leave your favorite theories about what's going to happen in Severance this season in the comments. And until next week, I'll see y'all.